back, and today what we're going to do is we're going to take the rake, filbert rake, 1/4 inch low Cornell, and we're going to deepen the bottom of the green and give some more depth to the neutral gray tint leaf. Doesn't necessarily show it in the photograph, but we're going to give it some more value just so it doesn't stick out like a sore thumb. And first thing we're going to do then is pick up the neutral gray tint, and this is just a soft value of it. I'm loading my brush, I'm wiping it off. Again, this is just going to be a dry brush, so you want it to be very light in value. And I'm just building color just as if I were flattening out my brush and doing it that way. I'm just building this color up. But it's not one big streak. Reloading, wiping off the tip. And I think I'm going to do some up in here too. Get some more values up in here. On the tip of it. I'm using this as if it were a liner and holding it at a 90-degree angle on my paper. So that's something you want to remember too. So there we go. Got a nice value change there, which is really lovely. And this is a very gentle, because you've got a lot of paint on there ready, and you don't want to remove that. You just want to add another layer of darkness to it without having to wet the paper and do a wet on wet technique again. Sooner or later the paper is not going to accept a wet on wet technique any longer. It's not made to do that. Arches paper is great, and you can do quite a few layers with it. However, eventually you are going to run out, that the paper is not going to allow you to do that any longer and get the effect that you're looking for. I'm just looking back at my photograph. It kind of comes up the center here, so we'll reinforce that. See how gently I'm just moving that brush and not adding a lot of paint, but just enough to give it the value change that I'm looking for. Okay, I think we've got everything erased. Yeah, it looks like we do. Excellent. So we're going to start on the darker pink. Now, the darker pink is going to be our alizarin crimson and permanent madder lake. Oh, I'm sorry, deep. Can't read my own handwriting. Deep madder lake. So it'll be this value. So we could even darken it a little bit as we go if we need to. And this is going to be dry on wet. So I'm going to pick up a smaller brush. I think I'm going to go to a number 2. That's what this is. Yeah, number 2. Which, this is a English number 2, so you might want to just pick up a number 4, should be perfect. Here is probably our darkest right here, so we're going to deepen this. We'll start there. And again, this is dry brush, or wet brush, dry paper. Put it in perspective here. So your brush is wet. It's not necessarily soaking wet, it's just damp, and then you load your paint into it. So that's considered wet. And now I'm going to clean my brush out. Wipe off any drips on the ferrule. Real important, you don't want anything dripping off of your brush. And then what you do is you lay your brush down flat. Use your tip to pull that line so that it doesn't become harsh. Don't want a harsh line if you can help it. All right, good. So softening that in. Actually, we can bring some of that down here too. Help deepen that value. And I'm just softening in my lines. And this goes that direction. Okay, so that looks good. Let's get this in here a little bit deeper too. It needs it. Make up some more paint real quick here. So we're going to do a darker area here and a little bit of a darker area there. And this needs to have some separated from those two little petals up on top as well. So we'll do that. Need a little bit more water in my brush. There we go. That's better. If your paint's not moving and you can't figure out why, it's probably because it's too dry. It needs a little bit more moisture. Reinforcing some of those areas. Cleaning my brush. Softening in those lines. Well, kind of erased that one, but that's okay. We can go back in and reinforce it. Didn't want it to create a harsh line, so now that it's moist, it won't. It'll spread out. That one I'm going to just go right over the top because it's probably pretty dry by now. So if you got an area that's dried too quickly on you, which this area had, just go right over it with your brush. And then you can come back in, like I'm doing right now, and soften it away. There we go. That looks better. Well, just picked up my paint again, so what I'm going to do is that. I think what I'm doing is coming back in with too much water the second time to soften the edge, and then I just get the whole paint picked up. That's better. And I'm just going to turn this around. And soften that edge. Very good. That I was pointing out before. has a little bit more depth, so we're going to go back to our rake. Clean it, make sure I don't have any color in it. And I'm just going to pick up the yellow all by itself. Make sure I don't have any drips on my ferrule. Wipe the tip off. And the area that we're going to work on here is right up in here. There is a highlight in there and we don't want to lose that. I'm just going to bring this, and it's almost this direction. So it's a little different. And it's just a touch of color. And then as it goes up, it almost turns to a gray. But that looks good. That looks good. Let's get this color down here too. Some of that color all over. Especially at this base. See how that adds just another value in there where you need it. Okay. Just bothered me as I had that open space down there, so I just filled it in. This is actually going to be a frame of 9 by 12 with a mat of 8 by 10 inside, so it's going to be a smaller painting when it's done. And I've decided not to do the line work on this one. I think again it's just a little bit too delicate of a flower to be able to handle that line work. So I'll do some research and pick out a different flower that we can do some line work on together. One that can actually handle the line work and not get lost with the delicate leaves and petals. Definitely the petals here are really delicate, so it would get kind of lost there. So I'm just gently, and I'm wiping this off each time I load it so that there's not a lot of paint on there. It just stays nice and dry that way. But I do get another layer on here without adding a lot of moisture. So now I've got everything nice and dry and cool to the touch. There's just one little spot that I want to do a dry brush detail on. Got my brush loaded with the dark value pink that we'd been working with. Wiped off my bristles so that it's very, very dry. And it's just a little tiny line here. And you just, it gives you so much more detail in your work. So look for those kinds of things. What can I add in that's really going to make it unique? There we go. Okay. Now I think I got that section a little bit too dark. So I'm going to show you how I correct that. First thing I'm going to do is clean my eradicator. Make sure it's nice and clean. I'm not picking up any other colors on my brush. And I've got a clean piece of paper towel. I've wiped off all the drips on the eradicator. And I'm going to just go ahead and use the tip of my brush. I'm using it at a 90-degree angle. And I'm just removing a little bit of that paint. Putting my paper towel down on top and not rubbing the paper towel. Rubbing my finger over the paper towel. Because if you start rubbing the paper towel over the paper like this, you're going to rough the paper up. But see how that just gently softened that away? So it doesn't look quite so harsh. And I'm going to do the same thing down that line. Clean my brush, wipe it off, make sure I have no drips. I'm going to do that one more time over here. Right down this edge as well with that. I mean, we want those lines there, we just don't want them as harsh as they were. So that's where the eradicator comes in handy. Just helps us soften that in. And then by using the paper towel to pick it up, makes it look even better. Soften this area a little bit as well. There, I like that much better. And I'm just looking, I've got the values in here, I've got the values in here that I wanted. This area I'm pleased with as it comes down this area as well. I'm now happy with the top. Looks the way I want it to look. So we're actually going to call this completed. And I'm just cleaning off my eradicator. And I'm going to pick up my liner brush again. Make up some of the red color here so I've got a little bit more. There we go. I'm rolling my brush. Now, since I know some of this is going to be cut off, I think I'm going to, and you want to think about that. Where is my mat going to go? Is it going to cover this up? So, and again, you want to practice signing your name so that it looks the way you want it to look when it's completed. And I'm just going to reload my brush. And like I say, you might want to just practice doing this. There we go.